Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader Show. Our vision is to see healthy leaders leading healthy churches that transform communities with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Together, we're on mission to be encouraged, focused, and equipped for harvest. Many times as Christian leaders, we spend all of our time pouring out and serving others. But the reality is we need to consistently take time to reflect on our inner life with God. We believe that the best and most effective ministry flows out of people who are leading from a sense of health and wholeness in their relationship with God, their relationship with themselves, and their relationship with others. In this show, we take time to delve into biblical principles, practical strategies, and inspiring stories that are going to help you in your journey of becoming a healthy Christian leader. So, with that being said, let's jump in and begin to think deeply about our own leadership and life with God as we grow on this journey together. Well, hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Christian Leader Show. We are super excited for the conversation that we're going to be having today. We have a special guest with us in studio, Father Simon Lobo. Thanks for joining us, Father Simon.
It's great to be here with you, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, for those of our listeners who may not have the context on who you are, where you come from, your story of how you began in ministry, would you be able to just contextualize that for us and help people get to know you a little bit right now?
Sure. I grew up in Ottawa, and I became a priest in 2009 with the Companions of the Cross. So it's a religious community. I'm a Catholic priest, and I moved out to Halifax in 2015. So I came to work with a dear friend and I think a friend to the whole Aaron community, Father James Mallon. And so I was mentored by him at Benedict Parish in Halifax. For the first couple of years, the plan was to go off after 2 years and go apply my learning somewhere else, but I ended up succeeding him as the pastor at Benedict. And so I've stayed on. I've been in Halifax now 8 years, and I'm still a come from away, but it feels like home.
That's awesome. So how long have you been the lead priest at St. Benedict's now?
For 6 years. Yeah.
6 years. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're really excited about the topic that we're going to be delving into today with Father Simon. We're actually going to be talking about healthy Christian leadership and time management. I've heard a lot about maybe some of your perspectives and approaches to time management, and this is something that a lot of pastors and Christian leaders struggle with. It sounds like a really simple, practical thing that you could kind of easily just kind of brush off and say, oh, time management, is that really a topic that matters? But really, if we do well with time management or if we don't do well with time management, it has a significant impact in how our ministries are going to go throughout our weeks, our months, our years. So with that being said, my first question that I wanted to ask you, Father Simon, is when it comes to the importance of time management, before we delve into any of the specifics, could you kind of help us think theologically about the significance of time management in the life of the Christian leader?
Sure. Well, I mean, first, as we're getting going, I just need to say this, Spencer, I feel like the biggest fraud. It's like, why are you interviewing me about time management? I literally was like, oh man, what am I gonna say? And I reached out to a friend for some like crib notes or any advice. I was like, look, I don't have time to prepare for this time management interview. Can you help me? So the irony is so rich. So I just want to say to the whole community watching, I am with you. I'm a learner. I think I've fallen on my face far more than succeeded in this whole realm. So this is good for me. It's good for me to be talking about this because it's helping to convict me and move me deeper in this whole area. So I do think it's important. I think it's profoundly important. And just go back to the whole notion of stewardship, right? So we talk about time, talent, and treasure. And so time is one of those rich resources that's been given to us by God, and it's finite, at least for the window that we have here on earth. And so what we do with that time, how we spend it, how we invest it, how we pour it into ministry, how we use it for relationships, all of that is essential. And I mean, in terms of a theology of that or whatever, we could go back to the book of Genesis, right at the very beginning. What is God doing? He is creating, which is something that all of us are called to do as pastors, as leaders. Whether we're creating content or we're helping to build the kingdom. It's this work of creation. And so God, he did that as revealed in Scripture in this way in chunks of time. You know, the first day God creates, the second day God creates, and third day, right through these 6 days of time that are being used to bring about so much beauty and goodness. And then on the seventh day, he rests, which is also part of the way that God's, I think, teaching us and instructing us for how to manage time. So all of this, I think, is framed up in terms of, hey, God is the inventor of time.
Right.
And so we're tapping into a whole methodology and approach, a reality. I mean, as humans, we're limited by space and time, and so we're living within this context that God has created, and so how we manage our time, I think, is a reflection of being dignified and being made in the image and likeness of God. I mean, humans were created within that context of time as well, in that original creation story. And so all of it, like I just reflect for a second. When I have a good day, I feel like I put in a good day. I mean, work, labor, it's part of how we're designed as creatures of God. When I put in a good day, I feel so satisfied. And I think you can relate to that, right? Well, why is that? It's because we've made good use of this gift of time that God's given to us. We've done the things that God has made us to do. We've done them well within the time allotted. And so I think that's all plays into this whole why it matters so much. We're being who God made us to be.
Yeah, and as I think about my own journey with time management, I can also think of days where I haven't been as intentional with my time, and the experience is almost the opposite. Instead of feeling satisfied, there's a sense of frustration that I begin to feel, where it's like I look back on my day and I think, I feel like I could have done a better job maximizing and being intentional with the time that God gave me today. But what about you when it comes to your personal experience with time management? What has that looked like in the beginning years of ministry? As you've kind of experienced the need for time management, what has your perspective become on its significance in your life specifically?
Sure. So, I mean, I think like many of us, fairly hardworking, I happen to be that type A driven, get stuff done type of person. And so for me, when it came to time management, it was just like, okay, I just need to spend more time and work harder and faster within the time that I have. And sometimes if it means sleeping a little bit less or whatever, then that's what I'm going to do. And obviously that's not sustainable. It's not anything I would recommend, but I think certainly in those early years, it was some of that. And I just have to do more, better, faster, that kind of approach. And I came to a place, and I think it was really in becoming lead pastor for the first time half a dozen years ago, where I realized I'm in over my head. And it's so easy. When I was the assistant pastor working with Father James, I would look at him and think, oh man, if I was like in the big chair, there's so many things that I would do better. Like I'd see all of his many strengths and some of his weaknesses and be like, yeah, why is he doing that? Or why isn't he doing this or whatever? And as soon as I became lead pastor, I was like, oh man, this is humbling. I realized I don't have all the gifts that Father James has, but all of the weaknesses that he had, I have times 10. And it's like, I'm in over my head. I don't even the emotional burden of being pastor, I was not prepared to take that on. So suddenly I'm in this place where I have more than I could juggle, the complexity of running a big parish. I mean, again, context, pre-pandemic, if it's even fair to talk about that, we would have seen maybe 1,500 people through our doors on a weekend.
Wow.
So maybe by East Coast standards, that's fairly large.
Yeah.
And we're almost back to that, a few years out of the pandemic now. But what I've found is that as I was trying to juggle all the things and use that approach of just do more, faster, better, I was like, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I'm either gonna kill myself or balls are gonna drop, things that are really important are going to be missed, and that's not good stewardship, right? To go back to the original point. And so I didn't know what to do, and somehow I don't even know how it happened, but I got chatting with Dwight, who I think, again, many of the listeners and viewers would be familiar with, and Dwight just kind of said, hey, would you allow me to mentor you a little bit in time management? And so I actually brought with me today a prop. So this is my first work journal that I looked at it here. Okay, so mentoring with Dwight, date 2018-12-07. So December the 7th, 2018, 5 years ago, just about that, we had our first meeting, and we had a series of meetings, coffees or lunches or whatever, where he just started to share with me some of what he's learned on this journey. And by his own admission, he says this was not a natural thing. He wasn't naturally organized, but he had to develop some basic tools as his life, professionally, personally, started to grow more complex. And so that was such a gift for me to start to be mentored by somebody who's a few steps ahead on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the complexity of leading a larger organization. Your church has, around 1,500 parishioners on a regular basis, and I'm sure you have staff members and all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate the tension between wanting to be really intentional and great with your stewardship of your time, while also wanting to make sure that doesn't turn into an unhealthy extreme where we don't have the margin to slow down and be with people and allow there to be interruptions in our day? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Because
totally.
It seems like it's a bit of a tension, right? Like, as a young leader myself, I want to steward my time well. I want to work hard and be successful and do the best that I can to steward the talents that God has given me. I think of the parable of the talents, for example. I don't want to be the guy who's burying my talents in the ground.
Yep.
I want to invest it wisely, but at the same time, I don't want that to turn into this kind of fleshly striving that's just trying to, do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Like, how do we live in that tension?
Yeah, so I love the question, right? One of my biases is towards, I think achiever is in my top strength in the Strengths Finder, right? So achiever and focus is in my top 5. So those two together are an awesome combination, but the dark side of that is like, I just want to get stuff done and I want to be efficient. And if I'm in a meeting or if I'm in a whatever and we're wasting time, it kills me.
I've been there, yeah.
I just want to, what are we doing here? We gotta get somewhere. Now that is such a gift, because I can bring a fire and move things forward, but the danger is that you can get blinders on and start to it all becomes efficiency. I realized can be an idol in my life, where it's all about, okay, if I dial in my time management system or whatever and be super efficient. And with every minute of every day it's all to glorify God. Actually, what I'm really worshiping is my schedule, even more than the God of my schedule. And so it's a both and, right? It's like, okay, I need to go in with a plan every day, every week, and be open to whether it's holy or unholy interruptions, but the things that come up, sometimes they're people who I've looked to. So they have this church in Maryland, and called Church of the Nativity, and they wrote this series of books, Rebuilt, and essentially they have this concept. One of their chapters is they call funerals Scud missiles. So in my context, we have. One of the other priests actually did a funeral this morning. There's another one in a few days. I did one last week. And so it's not uncommon for us to have 3-4 funerals a month. Okay, let's say. So almost weekly. And these are not like, it can be very inconvenient when people die, and with all due respect to to the deceased and those who grieve. But it's like, man, I had a week planned out and it was full of stuff, things that I tried to be responsible and block off time to do the right, most important things, and then out of nowhere, it's like this comes up. And it's like, well, you know what? I have to both have my plan and be adaptable.
Right.
And constantly, and at the end of the day, when we die, we're not going to be judged by how many emails did we respond in the most clear and concise way. How many tasks did we check off the to-do list? It's like, did we love?
Yeah.
Did we love well? And within the time that was granted to us.
Absolutely. Okay, well, with that being said, how has this kind of both and approach impacted your practical approach to time management? Like, do you have any tools that you've really been relying on, any frameworks or just ways that you think about? Like, what does your week look like? What does your days look like?
Sure.
Take us into the life of Father Simon and how managing your time looks like on a regular basis.
Yeah. So, I'm going to scattergun here.
Yeah, go for it.
But I'll throw out a bunch of different ideas. So, one is that I have one bucket, or I've tried to have one bucket. And I've drawn from all kinds of, whether from Dwight mentoring me to reading a few books and stuff, from Getting Things Done, David Allen, to When by Daniel Pink, or At Your Best is a great summary by Carey Nieuwhof.
Okay.
Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I'm just throwing out a bunch of, what's another one? The 7 Habits, right?
Of highly effective people.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. So drawing from a whole bunch of things. And I think one thing that I would suggest to the listeners and viewers is, like, you have to take in a bunch of ideas and don't just cut and paste. It has to be integrated. Like, you have to then say, okay, this is going to be my system. So here's where I'm at today, and it's an evolving, dynamic reality.
Yeah.
So I try to have one bucket. So one tool where an idea comes to me, somebody talks to me, there's something I just don't want to forget. One place where I can go and just drop it, and I know I can go back to. So I have a digital on my phone, Microsoft To Do. It's just a to-do list that I've used for a long time. That I have a series, I can make sub-lists and highlight, like, okay, this is one list just for this one staff member who I'm supporting, or this is one list related to my personal life, and then I can subdivide that into other dimensions. This is one list here's like today's list, just the things that I need to pay attention to today, right? So having a big bucket where I can just drop things. Then is the work of prioritizing and reprioritizing as those Scud missiles come in, and one really simple thing that I don't always do, but I remember hearing this retired firefighter. He just stood up at one of our leader gatherings and he said, every morning I take a sticky note and I write 3 things on it. These are the 3 things that I have to do today. And these are like my top 3 most important things. And there might be other things that if I get to beyond that, that's gravy. That's bonus, like awesome. But I need to hit these 3 things. And it's like that simple. And even I love the analog of it's just on a piece of paper and the satisfaction of being able to cross that thing off. So this morning I actually wrote 4 things on a sticky note, three and kind of a pretty important bonus one, I'll say. And so far I've done 2. And so I feel pretty good. So
Yeah.
even if by lunchtime today I don't get to anything else, like the rest of my day gets hijacked by all kinds of things, it's still like a pretty good day. But it's being able to say, this is the topmost priority. And some of that has to do with self-understanding of, how has God made me? What am I good at? What are the gifts or the skills, the talents that He's given me? Based on the position where I find myself, is there are there some things that only I can do that nobody else in the organization can do? And so hence, that needs to be a priority for me.
Right.
So those are how I prioritize some of those things on that list. And then the super high priorities, I even stick into my calendar, right? So I'm scheduling allotted time for working on this or that project. Now, speaking of a weekly calendar, so Mondays are my day off, so I try really hard to protect that and not to get into any kind of work on those days. And then I try to protect my mornings. So this is a concept, again, from When and from At Your Best, is understanding your rhythm. Most of us have a natural rhythm where we have a green zone where we're highly productive and effective, and then we have a red zone in our day when we're useless, so we can sit at something and read the same line over and over again.
Been there.
And just not make any headway. And then the yellow zone where it's kind of like halfway, we can get some stuff. And so in that green zone, what are the most important things? And for a pastor, it's that sermon preparation. Sometimes it's writing articles. It's that deep work. Cal Newport is another great person to turn to in his book, Deep Work, where what is that work I need to, I can't do it in 10 minutes. It might take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, but if I can get into flow, and that's another concept I think many people would have heard about, where you're riding that wave. There's no distractions. You're moving, and it's like, man, things are just flowing. If it's some creative writing you have to do, for example, and it's just, man, this is easy, right? So I try to block up my mornings. Not that I'm like a super morning person, but I would say I found between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., that's kind of the zone where I'm cooking. So somewhere in there, and if I can get 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours in that zone, that is awesome. So I deliberately move into my afternoons, any meetings I have, team meetings, one-on-ones, or if people in the parish want to find time to meet with me, unless it's like hyper important, I'll try to find a slot in my afternoon. And even if that's like in a couple weeks from now, I'd rather that than give up one of my morning slots, because that's so vital for me to be able to do that kind of deep work when I'm at my best. And then I also try to schedule in things like, well, I start my day with prayer,
of course, yeah.
and then I schedule in things like exercise, things that are really important that keep me going. So anyways, I'll pause there because I've already thrown out a lot of different ideas.
That's good stuff. Just out of curiosity, how many hours would you normally put into sermon prep on a weekly basis?
Yeah, great. So I have been preaching about every other week,
okay.
Right? So the blessing of having
that's
great.
Nice.
So when I'm up to bat, I will say it's probably in the 10 to 15 hour range.
Okay.
And so, and we'll preach for around 20 minutes. So I'm not quite at the 1 hour per minute mark, but then there's a whole collaborative process. We have a preaching team and we give each other feedback. And so I'd say with the man hours that go into it, we're around 20 hours maybe.
That's cool. That's cool. You talk about obviously sermon prep being like a big thing for pastors as far as prioritization goes. If somebody were like in any kind of ministry leadership context, what are like a couple other things that maybe despite personality, temperament, or even gift mix, you would say are things, maybe one or two things that should be high on the priority list?
Sure. So vision. Everybody talks about vision, and really, it's to me, vision is just something so painful because I'm not naturally a visionary. I'm not naturally futuristic, but to be pausing, to be looking outwards. What's the direction? Are we still moving in that main direction where we feel God is calling us to? And sometimes we get off a couple degrees and come back. So that, with that prioritizing, so strategy, how do we get towards that vision? So prioritizing a few big things. So for example, in my parish right now, over the last couple of years, we've discerned kind of a new or just an updated vision around a parish that is explosively alive. So alive in the spirit, where where people are discovering Jesus, become missionary disciples, and going out to transform the world. So within that, that's like a big, I want to make sure that as a leader and people who are leaders in various ministries, that they'll have their own vision. What can we focus on right now? So I love this question. How is the vision being lived out in this season? And for us right now, two things. There's two priorities, two buckets, two strategic anchors that we're clinging to, and that's around expanding prayer in our church, and so that deepening that prayer and making sure people know how to pray and being equipped and are spending time. And then secondly is leadership development, where I think, again, coming out of the pandemic, it's a season to raise up new leaders and re-energize leaders and develop people. So in leadership pipelines and stuff like that. So those are the two, and I think any kind of leader, depending where you are, in some way, you need to be thinking about vision, you need to be focusing on some priorities, and I think the third thing is around people. Like, who are your key most people you should be investing in? Because a lot of people are going to want your time, but who are the people you need to choose to say, I'm making time for these people right now, because before other things get in the way. So, so some of the priests that I work with on the team, I have a parish leadership team, we call it. So there's a couple of lay people on staff who are leaders, who are leading other staff. Those are people who, on a regular basis, I'm setting aside time to sit down with them for one-on-ones.
Wow, that's so good. So vision needs to be a high priority despite personality, temperament, or gift mix, and empowering key people in your circle of influence needs to be a high priority. That's really good. Well, as we wrap up the conversation, are there any kind of last thoughts or pieces of encouragement that you would want to give to the people who are listening today on the topic of health, time management, or even something maybe beyond that?
Well, I think I'm just going to circle back to where we started, right? You're talking about what's this theology of time management? And I would just say, God is the God of time. And I so often live in this realm of guilt that I'm not doing enough, I'm not being a good enough steward of my time, I've wasted time here. I know all this, everything I just talked about, I know, and yet am I doing the thing that I know? And it's very often I'm not. Like, as recently as yesterday, I had this little block of time to work on a few things, and I squandered them doing email or checking Slack instead of doing the most important priorities.
Yeah.
And so I would just say this is something that we need to surrender to God in.
Amen.
Ask for His help, and realize at the end of the day, we're here for a finite amount of time on this earth, and we do want to be good stewards of it, but all of this is ordered towards spending eternity with God.
Man, that is so good. Man, I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Father Simon, and I really hope that all of you who are watching enjoyed it as well. Listen, if you enjoyed this, I want to encourage you to make sure that you share this resource with other pastors and Christian leaders who are in your network. We are really passionate about creating content that is going to help us reflect on our life with God, our leadership with God, and make sure that we are leading out of a place of health and wholeness. And so thank you for joining us, Father Simon, and
welcome.
Thank you for watching. We pray that this blesses you in your own leadership journey. Hey friends, thanks for checking out our episode of the Healthy Christian Leader Show. We pray this episode has encouraged you on your own journey of growing as a healthy Christian leader. If this has blessed you in any way, we want to challenge you to consider giving financially to support the work that we are doing here at Aaron Ministries. Your giving enables us to continue creating resources just like this for Christian leaders, both locally and around the world. And so if that's something that you'd be interested in, you can head on over to aaronministries.com/give to partner with us today. And another way that you can partner with us is by sharing our digital resources with pastors and Christian leaders in your networks. So if this content or any other piece of content that we've created has blessed you, we would encourage you to send it to a friend and help us spread the word about what God is doing amongst Christian leaders today. Thanks for checking us out. We can't wait to see you next time.